Постріл!
Two years on, Russia's war against Ukraine is being fought as intensely as ever. But Ukraine has a big problem. It's running out of ammunition, specifically 155mm artillery shells, the standard caliber used by the howitzers of NATO member states. With a crucial $60 billion aid package blocked in the US Congress, and Europe struggling to ramp up its own production, Ukraine is forced to fire its prized Western artillery pieces at a miserly rate to keep them firing at all. Reading about shell hunger is one thing, but it can be hard to understand how that manifests in the day-to-day of the battlefield. We went to the front line to see for ourselves. Sun's just rising here in eastern Ukraine, and we're heading to positions, artillery positions, somewhere outside the city of Bakhmut, which is now occupied but still remains a hotspot on the front line. I can't say exactly where we're going because we've been given pretty rare access to see one of the American-supplied M109 Paladin self-propelled howitzers. So this is one of the NATO-supplied artillery pieces firing NATO-caliber artillery shells, which are one of the most crucial weapons in Ukraine's defense of its independence.
Давно вже тут?
Ну, трошки є, да.
Трошки це скільки?
Трошки. Дочка, ось син.
This is my daughter, this is my son, and that's me. I have a daughter, for example. She is very proud that her father serves in the armed forces. She tells everyone that her dad is in the armed forces of Ukraine.
А коли отримали Паладина?
Це перед Новим годом.
А, перед этим? Угу.
Машина дуже гарна.
It's a great machine, really gentle. It loves kindness, care. But the boys are doing well. They are trained, they help each other. We do our best to have a good dynamic with the crew.
Допомагають один одному. Стараємось, щоб екіпаж був злагоджений.
Is something buzzing? Get down, under the camouflage net. Everyone understands everything. Everyone knows that you can't think like, oh, tomorrow everything will be different. Let's live one day at a time. Our command knows more than we do. I hope we don't end up in a situation where the Russians are attacking and we'll have to run at them with sticks.
Вони будуть атакувати, а ми будемо з палками на них бігти.
Над нами крыло летает, подносить в нычку куда-то. Рядом, очень рядом.
Плюс я в курсе, все подносить. Все хорошо.
I'm sitting in the back door of the howitzer at the moment, so normally it's manned by a crew of 4. Standard, you've got your driver, you've got your commander, reloader, and your gunner. The shells are in the back. And the advantage, of course, of the self-propelled howitzer is that it can move into a firing position, shoot, do its job quickly, and then get out quickly. And that's extremely important in this war specifically because the sky, as we heard a few times already today, is just full of drones, full of eyes in the sky. And so wherever you go, it's just a matter of time before something targets you. That's why these American self-propelled howitzers are so important. They go out, they do their job, and they get back safe under cover. With Russian drones regularly patrolling the skies above their position, the crew waits for a fire mission in an underground dugout.
А як це взагалі жити в бліндажі?
It's better to live in conditions like this than for our guys to have to live in trenches under the open sky. We do not complain. It's more difficult for them than for us. We can't say that we have it hard or anything like that. We live very well.
Нам там погано, то нам нема на що скаржитися, чесно.
There's a saying in the Ukrainian military: the price of an artilleryman's sweat is measured in the blood of the infantryman. Now, it's not the artilleryman's workload that's the problem, but their ammunition. The price, however, is the same.
Только пехота запросит поддержку.
As soon as the infantry calls for artillery support, the machine starts working. Do you see that the infantry is constantly supported? We would happily work for days on end just to cover the infantry.
Работать, лишь бы пехоту прикрывать.
The howitzer is just staying warm at the moment because we're in the middle of winter. But for now, it's been a bit of a quiet day. They said they had a fire mission earlier in the morning before we arrived. There were about 5 shells fired. At the moment in this area, this howitzer is used mostly for covering the infantry. So when the infantry battles get more intense, you have either Ukrainians assaulting Russian positions or the other way around, which is happening now. Then if it's intense enough, they'll call in artillery support, which is why, when it comes to this brutal, slow positional war that is continuing almost into its 3rd year now in Ukraine, this weapon is just so crucial.
You gave the equipment. Yes, that's good. Please give us more shells for it to work. They, the foreign partners, promised that they will give you 1,000 shells a month. We could easily shoot 1,000 a month, just my crew alone.
When Russia's full-scale invasion began, the dominant role that artillery would play quickly became obvious. Stockpiles of shells for Ukraine's Soviet-era guns in friendly countries were finite, so Kyiv's partners quickly set about transitioning to using 155mm artillery. Over 2023, more and more Western countries started delivering their own howitzers, and shipments of shells arrived at a steady rate. Thanks to this, Ukraine was able to stay in the fight against the Russian army with much more firepower. But ever since shipments of ammunition from the US stopped over winter, Ukraine is now firing far more shells than it is receiving. European countries are scrambling to pick up the slack, but expanding production across the continent is taking time, more time than Ukraine has. Of the 1 million shells promised by the European Commission by March 2024, only about a half have been delivered. Ukraine's 43rd Artillery Brigade is a specialized artillery unit with divisions all over the front line. Over last year, the brigade made a complete transition from huge Soviet-era Pion howitzers to the high-tech German PZH-2000, also known as the Panzerhaubitze. We spoke to a young commander of a battery of Panzerhaubitze to learn more about the reality of the ammunition situation.
Чисто командирський кіт.
What he told us painted a grim picture of what the future could hold if Washington doesn't get the ammunition flowing again soon.
Коли ми перший раз виїжджали, в нас було, грубо кажучи, там сотнями снарядів.
When we went on our first missions, we had hundreds of shells. They brought us a lot. Our small ammunition store was completely filled. Now it's half empty. It feels like they are giving us less and less. New deliveries happen much less frequently. We are working with our reserves. This is a problem, because if there will be no more deliveries to fill the warehouse, then sooner or later I will use up my reserve. How and with what to work further, I have no idea. For us to stop working here at all, it would be bad. We have to work. They certainly are.
Вони працюють.
To some extent, Ukraine's shortage of artillery ammunition is alleviated by the use of FPV or first-person view drones for similar targets. Though they carry much less explosive force than a shell, FPV drones are a high-precision weapon, much cheaper to produce, and can be constructed at home rather than on an expensive assembly line. But the idea that drones can truly replace artillery is deeply flawed, as the commander told us.
На мою думку, артилерія.
In my opinion, artillery should always be there. For some reason, the infantry always counts on us, on artillery support, not on FPV. An FPV flies in, it hits, and that's it. But if infantry is being hit by a large caliber, they hear this whistle, it explodes nearby, it demoralizes the enemy. FPVs don't have the same effect. The enemy has a lot of artillery pieces. It uses them 24/7. While our guns sometimes go quiet for whatever reason, theirs don't. This plays a big role on the battlefield.
Також в полі битви грає велику роль.
Один вогонь.
Заводи! Там стань. Все? Все, на базу, уходим с машины. Второго пострела, чтобы нас не зашли. Вы же поймите, не зря артиллерию называют...
You see, there's a reason why artillery is called the god of war. The infantry is the queen of the fields, and artillery, the god of war. The more the god of war throws his shells, the faster the war will end.
Быстрее война будет заканчиваться.